Have you ever had a tenant who stopped paying rent, repeatedly delayed making the payment they promised, and you weren't sure how to proceed, only for the weeks to turn into months? Welcome to Strategy Saturday. I'm Charles Carillo, and today we're diving into a smarter, faster way to reduce your apartment delinquencies and protect your NOI before it's too late. This exact scenario happened to me multiple times when I became a landlord 2 decades ago until I put together some guidelines that we now follow when working with tenants. So let's get started. In episode SS238, we discussed reducing your vacancy rate as a great way to increase your property's NOI. Now, going one step further is reducing your property's delinquencies. Number one is tenant screening. So if you don't get anything else from this episode, tightening your tenant screening is the best way to reduce apartment delinquencies. Over the past few years, tenant fraud has increased significantly. If you are self-managing your properties or you've hired a third-party management company, the manager should initially focus on confirming the tenant's identity, employment, and income. And I highly suggest utilizing an AI document screener or verification service to assist with this process. Next, I would suggest outlining a strict list of tenant screening requirements, such as a minimum credit score, a minimum rent-to-income ratio, maybe 3 times, and a stance on criminal history. Lastly, the deposits required for new tenants to move in should be reviewed. Are you asking 1 month or 2 months? Or maybe you are utilizing a deposit replacement program, allowing renters to pay a small non-refundable fee instead of a large upfront security deposit. If you're experiencing a higher rate of delinquencies, you might consider increasing that upfront security deposit required for move-in. And if you want more effective tenant screening tips, you can check out episode SS203. SS203. Number 2 is payments. So make it easy for your tenants to pay you. Offering an online portal to your tenants simplifies the rent collection process. I would ensure that you can accept payments directly from the tenant's bank account through ACH, and most portals offer the possibility of accepting credit cards from tenants. In most instances, the tenant covers the credit card processing fee. Additionally, offer tenants the ability to mail or drop off money orders and checks. Number 3 is late fees. Now, the late fee is intended to encourage tenants to pay their rent on time instead of paying another creditor first, who will charge them a late fee, and then they choose to pay you. When I self-manage, I would let the first late rent payment slip, but I always charge for it in subsequent instances. And I never told them this, it just did this. And the late fee should be high enough to discourage late payments, but not outrageous, so it will cause kind of undue hardship for the tenant. We want the tenants just to pay their rent, and if they're going to pay a few days late, we want to charge them a fee for it. Number 4 is payment agreements. I hesitated to add this point, but I've made successful payment agreements with tenants in the past. However, it's not common. Most payment agreements are a waste of time and money for landlords since they prolong the inevitable. If your tenants cannot pay rent this month, what makes you think they're going to pay rent for 2 months in a row next month? And I would first suggest you go through the online resident portal and have them, offer them that they can pay rent via credit card. If they cannot do that, I would discuss cash for keys, which you can learn more about in episode SS98. That's SS98. But really, you're giving them money for them to vacate the unit in a week or 2, and then you can move on with cleaning up, making the apartment ready for the next tenant. Number 5 is streamlining your eviction process. Now, most property owners do not understand the eviction process until they're forced through it. This put owners at a disadvantage compared to a seasoned real estate investor who knows the laws and has an attorney lined up to the point where they just forward the information to them, and the attorney immediately starts the process. And this is one of the benefits of working with a property manager, because they know this inside and out. So number 1, understand really your local eviction laws and timelines. And this is if you're just an investor and not managing, or this is definitely if you are an investor and you're self-managing your properties. Number 2 is start the process sooner rather than later. When rent is unpaid and tenants have been unresponsive to multiple calls and text messages, maybe some door knocks, have your attorney start the 3 days or quit process, or also called 3 days to pay or quit. In other words, in Florida, if the tenant fails to pay the full amount within 3 days, excluding weekends and legal holidays, the landlord can begin the eviction process. And really, that's 3 days after they've received the notice. Now, since all of my rental properties are in LLCs, I have to utilize an attorney. But when I own rental properties in my own name, I still always utilize an attorney. It's similar to opening LLCs. I always have an attorney do it for me, even though you can do it yourself, but you can find a good, reasonable real estate attorney and let them handle it. And good real estate attorneys, they are spending their time between doing closings and really doing evictions. So they're in their office or they are at court. And this is all they do all day. So they're not going to charge. It's going to be much different than if you had a litigation attorney or some attorney that's not really versed in doing this or does this often, you'll know exactly because you call the office, they're in court today, they're in court today, they're in court today, and this is what they're doing. And this is the type of attorney that you want to have as your real estate attorney, where they can handle contract questions with you from anything from if you're selling a property or you're working with vendors, something like this. Also handle all of your evictions. And the more business you're doing with that attorney, the more leeway you're going to get when you have questions. They're not going to be like turning on that clock right away. Number 3 is always maintain detailed records for each tenant, especially with the ones being evicted, including a timeline showing when they stopped paying, when you began the eviction, and when they ultimately left the property. After an eviction, look back and see where you could have further streamlined the process. And this is something your attorney is going to do for you, but you can do it yourself and just kind of get updates from your attorney or from their secretary, letting you know what's going on in the process and where they are. If they start working out deals or something, that's where they're going to contact you and be like, hey, do you want to agree to this? We have a deal on the table, and then this is what I suggest. And ensure that the property manager is always proactive. This means staying on top of tenants who haven't paid, repairs that haven't been completed, or potential issues before they become costly problems. So for this means that, if tenants haven't paid, you speak to property manager sometimes like, oh yeah, we called that tenant. Well, if they haven't paid after like 4 or 5 days, there's a lot more than just calling or one call is going to do. I need people over there knocking doors. I need texts. I need multiple calls. I need this to know that, get a firm, listen, this person's just avoiding 100%. Okay, at that point, let's start the process. You know what I mean? And this also goes where you have, they should be doing, these property managers, especially if you're the property manager, going to your property and doing inspections on the property. This doesn't have to be like a full inspection like you're buying a property. Like they're walking the property or they're inside units and they're seeing issues. They a lot of times will tell you what's going to happen, what problems are going to happen before they really happen, if that makes sense. So you can see stuff and you're like, okay, this has got like a short lifespan here, and this is what they should be bringing to you and be like, hey, you should really looking forward to fixing this in 1A, or this hot water heater should be done in like the next 6 months. This is stuff that what they're doing, and this is where you can get ahead of issues. And when you have everything lined up, this is where you're avoiding issues with your tenants as well, because if you have to take their hot water heater off for like 90 minutes, it's much different, and then you're taking it off for like 2 days, right? Number 6 here is knowing your numbers. Start improving your reporting to make it easier to review delinquencies monthly and annually. Now, this is a little bit more in-depth because most landlords don't have this capability, but if you start tracking how many days your units are down between tenants and how many days does it take to make ready the unit and how much does it cost, and when a delinquency occurs, how much does it typically cost you between lost rent, legal expenses, and preparing the unit for the next renter. This will make it much easier to figure out how strict you are with your tenant screening, number 1, and then also really how much you're going to be spending when, or what you would offer for cash for keys. If you know it typically costs you $3,000, which is pretty low actually, maybe it's $5,000 between lost rent, during an eviction, between the attorney, all this type of stuff, you're going to be much easier to go to a tenant that's not paying, offer them $1,500 and have them leave, and then really be done with it, and then you can move on. So these are important things that you have to take into consideration when you're renting properties and how you can help reduce apartment delinquencies at your property. So I hope you enjoyed. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, submit comments and potential show topics at globalinvestorspodcast.com. If you're interested in actively investing in real estate, please check out our courses and mentoring programs at syndicationsuperstars.com. That is syndicationsuperstars.com. Look forward to 2 more episodes next week. See you then. Have you always wanted to invest in real estate but didn't have the time, didn't know where to find the deals, couldn't get the funding, and didn't want tenants calling you? Since 2006, I've been buying income-producing properties in great locations that provide us with consistent passive income while we wait for appreciation in the future and take advantage of tax laws while we're waiting. And unlike your financial advisor, we invest alongside our investors in every property we purchase. Check out investwithharborside.com. If you like the idea of investing in real estate, if you like the idea of passive income, partner with us at investwithharborside.com. That's investwithharborside.com.
Nothing in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this podcast are limited to accredited investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure, subscription documentation, and are subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Syndication Superstars, LLC exclusively.